But basically, what Wolverine has always wanted is to know his past. So he remembers everything. Hey, welcome back to Norton Man Reviews, everyone. And we are looking at House of M with the Astonishing X-Men and the New Avengers. As I talked about in my last book, I really like this storyline. And as I talked to kind of in length, I refer back to my brother Rob again, and he explained in a book he recently reviewed on his channel about the pacing of books and storylines and comics, and you need some action in comic books and a balancing act between, character and story setup and just some action for, a comic book's sake. You want to pick up a comic and get like some excitement out of it. That is not how the first couple of issues of this goes. So you kind of have to look at it in a long story format, not just as single issues, which can be kind of frustrating when you're buying single issues on a monthly basis. You read something and like, damn it, I just want to know what's next. Now I have to wait a fucking month. So House of M is probably better read in, a collected edition or something like that. But we're looking at the single issues, and I don't mind any of this because I don't mind the lack of action. Spoilers, no action in this, right? As was the last issue. But they're setting up the story, and the art is unbelievable. I love this artist so much. Olivier Coipel. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that's how I think it is. He's not the cover artist here. I really need to figure out who this cover artist is, but he does the interiors in here with Brian Michael Bendis doing the writing, inker Tim Townsend. I just love his art so much, and I think he does such an incredible job in this book. So let's get into it. This cover is kind of interesting because it has all these people in it. Some are dressed kind of like a superhero, some are flying. But right kind of front and center is Wolverine, of all people, and he's staring at the camera. He's looking at you like something isn't up here. Something is wrong. And we're going to find out what. So, to recap, I'm just going to read this. Magneto has lost the war against ordinary humans for which he sacrificed the well-being of his children. Now he is forced to watch his daughter, Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, suffer a loss of control over both her powers and her grip on reality, much like what happened in the WandaVision show, right? Quicksilver, Wanda's brother, Pietro, pleads with their estranged father to help her. Mutant leader Charles Xavier, who was unable to help the Scarlet Witch, gathers the Avengers and the X-Men to decide how to proceed. They didn't know if they needed to kill her or not. Some people, like Wolverine, were like, yeah, let's fucking kill her. And others, like Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers, was like, no fucking way. The heroes are not convinced that killing Wanda is the only solution, so they travel to the mutant nation of Genosha to confront her in the hope of discovering what it is she wants. What it is that she wants. When they get to the island, Wanda is missing, as are Magneto and Pietro. So all of Magneto and his kids are gone. Also, Professor Xavier disappeared mysteriously. It was really weird. Then the world turns to white. Peter Parker, you saw it through his kind of perspective, Spider-Man awakens to a new world, one in which he is married not to Mary Jane Watson, but to the long-dead Gwen Stacy. Now, I am just going to explain what happens here, what happened. They explain it later in the books, but Wanda, through her reality-altering powers, was able to give basically everyone what they wanted in some form or another. So that's why it's called House of M. I don't know why some people get like their ideal world where some only get like a small portion. So that's what we're going to be witnessing in this. So the Bronx today, should be Brooklyn, but there's this old man checking his papers, and here it says Stephen Rogers and Captain Stephen Rogers. So we're led to believe that this is Steve Rogers, Captain America. And these kids see him, he's that old dude just looking, and he walks away. So in Captain America's version, he didn't get frozen in ice and come to the modern world. And World War II, he stayed there and everything was fine, and he probably lived a happy life. But he doesn't look too happy here. He looks sad and alone. But he's an old man. Here, pot of coffee, and I'm going to make a point to point this out. Toast comes up, okay? And they're in Connecticut. Here's Cyclops with Emma Frost, and they are married, and they live together, and he's fucking happy because it's Emma Frost. He was already with her, and she's wearing this little number here, wearing almost nothing. I pointed out the toast because she calls it a Pop-Tart. That's clearly toast. Whatever. I like just some of these human moments, like a shot of the coffee pot, shot of the coffee cup here. And she makes some comments here. I don't know what he does for a living, but she helps troubled youths, specifically mutants, and she mentions that little Richards boy where the astronauts died. So we're talking about Franklin Richards and how his parents died. So the Fantastic Four, that's part of what I don't understand. She gives people what they want, but only specific people. No one wanted the Fantastic Four to die. I don't understand that. On the radio, you hear stuff about, like, it's very world building, where they mention America's sweetheart, which is Mary Jane Watson. So she, was always wanting to be an actress. So now she's a famous actress. Emma Frost is actually a good person. She's not all cynical and bitchy. And then we go to this shot. Allison, it's the talk show, and this is Allison Blair, Dazzler. You see her fucking powers. And it looked like it's a TV screen here. And she has a guest, and he comes zapping in, and it's Simon Williams, they say. I couldn't fucking remember his name. I kept saying Sam Wilson, but it's Simon Williams. Wonder Man, he has a show coming out. He's also race swapped. What are you going to do? Who cares? I don't. And he's an amazing actor, so he has red eyes. And she's asking about what is going on with you and Carol Danvers. And he's like, well, she's a very special girl. And we'll find out, basically, that she's... Carol Danvers is the most popular superhero in America, and she's not even And here you see some stuff, like other people fly. I mean, let's just take a Marvel, no pun intended, at this shot of Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel. Apparently, the one thing she's wanted to be is to be like the ultimate superhero. That's kind of what she wanted to be. And what I said in my last video is, to my knowledge, Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, Warbird, Binary, Captain Marvel, whatever she was going on at the time, Ms. Marvel, she was kind of out of the spotlight, and Brian Michael Bendis brought her back in this series and then kept her around going forward in the Avengers. And from there, she became more popular, got her own book, took up the Captain Marvel mantle at some point, and we know where it went from there. She got her own movie and all that. So I like to say it's House of M that made Carol Danvers more famous, a household name eventually. So here but I like these other people, this guy flying through the air, the suit and tie and a briefcase, and these other people just kind of flying. So it seems like, without knowing and without having it to be told, if you looked something like this fucking shit, all the words that is just explaining things and trying to explain things and giving weird motivations and history and stuff. It's the show don't tell kind of a thing, and that's why it's kind of a slow burn for a story, but it works so well in my opinion. You're just learning what is going on with this world, and it seems like everybody has powers, or not everyone has powers, but mutants who all have powers of some kind are the majority and no longer the minority. That's Magneto's dream. That's where House of M comes from. taking a moment to marvel again at the art back here. City scenes are hard for me. I don't do well with perspectives and background because I'm an artist and I draw my own shit. And I would never think to do stuff like this. I mean, the coloring helps, but my instinct would just be like, these lines have to go all the way. You can't leave negative, like, just space there. But there's like very little detail in here, but you get the point, and it just works so much with so little. But getting back to the story, Ms. Marvel here, she hears something, and there's a cops chasing a car chase with cops. They yell out Remy, so it looks like there's Gambit who's involved. Gambit was a thief, so he steals something. Captain Marvel comes down. Hi, boys. Freaks him out. What does she do? Does she just fucking yeet the goddamn car? Stops it, then throws it into the park? My God. How would they survive? Gambit would not have survived that. He'd be fucking smashed to the ground and splattered. But he says, whatever the fuck that means. And he tries to use his powers against her, but it's no use because she's so badass. She zooms in, grabs him, slams him up against something. In comes the police. And if you look, there's an M on his eye. So there's Bishop. Bishop was a police officer in the future, right? Law enforcement of some kind. And she zooms off and they arrest him, and they have this cool shot of a sentinel, like of a statue that he was thrown into. Go to Kitty Pryde, and she's a teacher, and she's teaching elementary students, and they all have some kind of weird powers too. She asks who's the first mutant, and this kid says Prince Namor, which is accurate. She says good job, and she's like, okay, let's talk about some of the things Prince Namor said during World War II and how it's relevant today. Interesting stuff. Next page, we're in Hell's Kitchen, New York. You expect to see Daredevil, but he's not here. So this guy walking through this nightclub, I love the coloring going on, dimly lit, red, lots of shadows. And there's this guy who they will identify as Sam Wilson. So there's Falcon. And he's meeting somebody. Love this shot in the shadows. His face covered. Very cool. And he asks, are you Luke Cage? So there's Luke Cage. And we'll get to know who some of these other people are. I think this is Monica Rambeau. And I think this is Black Cat. I don't know who these other guys are. That might be Iron Fist. I don't know what's going on back here. If that's anything. But it's kind of this, club owner, crime boss, gangster kind of thing with he's a detective, Sam Wilson. So Detective Sam Wilson is talking with this guy, kind of very, universal ideas of shit going on. It's very interesting. There's a main book with 8 issues, but there was a lot of spin-offs where you could probably read the adventures of these guys here and of Spider-Man and some of the others. But it's not really necessary for the overall story, and you don't need to read those. I never did, and I still really like this. But you get a taste of what's going on as they're building up this world of where they're at. And they're talking back and forth, and he's asking him about something that happened to Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, about how he beat him into a coma, and Luke Cage is like, I'd give him applause. And he asks, where were you last night? And sleeping, you should try it, kind of a thing. So, some banter back and forth. We get to this guy here, this blonde-haired dude. That's actually Bob Reynolds. He calls him Robert here. And that's the Sentry, and he's talking with Doctor Strange, and it's like Doctor Strange is a psychiatrist, I guess. And he's like, so did it happen again? And he's talking about these episodes that he's having happen with his boy. Here, they're in the park. He looks back, and we know his shit with the Void. And it took me a minute to figure out what is going on here. But this shot is a replica of this one, and the Void is coming through, and cars are flying through the air because the void is coming and the darkness is coming at him. But it didn't really happen. He's freaking out because he thinks it is, but everything's fine. So, kind of some weird psychiatry shit going on to show you where the Sentry and Doctor Strange are. We're in Russia, this vast landscape here, this field, and something is being pulled through, and you see this. I don't know what this is called. You'd think I would, because I read books with my son, and you learn what a bunch of farm equipment are and construction equipment, what they're called and what they do. It's not a combine harvester for wheat. It's not a grader. I don't know. It's just leveling the sand and stuff. But it's Colossus, and he's just pulling this thing. It's this very teeny tiny little image of he's pulling this thing. Cool shot of Colossus. And here in Chicago, you have a couple of dudes talking, having a conversation. They're scientists, and it's Hank Pym and Ant-Man and Beast, Hank McCoy. Hank Pym, Hank McCoy, they're talking, and they're saying, he's going to fire you. They're talking about, their boss is Tony Stark, Iron Man, who's the smartest person in the world, and the most successful sapien they mention here. So we're getting the point that mutants are the majority, and humans are dying out. Evolution is taking over. And Hank Pym is trying to isolate what makes mutants mutants. And, Hank McCoy, Beast, is you shouldn't do this. You're going to get in trouble. It's reverse racism he mentions over here, and insulting. It's it's like trying to find out what makes a person who's black, what makes them black, and trying to isolate that. Hank Pym's no, I have a very specific reason. You'll if you just let me talk, if you let me explain. And he's no, Tony Stark told you not to do this. He will fire you. He, as a human, can't be seen, as wealthy as he is, trying to figure out what makes mutants mutants in a mutant world. He's going to lose everything. So he's you're gonna get in trouble. And they have that conversation, and he's I get it. You're human. We're mutants, and evolution is taking over, and your kind is going to become extinct, much like the dinosaurs did. But the dinosaurs didn't know what was happening to them. We are smart enough. You are evolved enough to know what is happening to you. So I get that it sucks, but it is what it is. So let's go get some lunch. So then we go to France, and we have Janet Van Dyne. She was always into fashion, a fashion designer, so that's what she is here. And you have hot as fuck Storm in this outfit. Look at this shit. She's got to be one of the sexiest characters of all time, right? And they're just kind of talking and looking at this dress. She talks about how it bunches up. She uses her wind powers to come up a gust of wind. She's it bunches up in the front when I summon the elements. We'll tape it down. She's just she asks, do you know what the House of Magnus is going to be wearing? So she's getting ready for some kind of event, and the House of Magnus is going to be there, who are very important. So then we go to Wolverine, and he has, it starts with him in the Weapon X tank and the project there, and he opens his eyes, and he's fucking freaking out, he just had a nightmare. He doesn't know where he is, and who's this redhead? Morning James, and he fucking freaks out. He's what is this? What's going on? She calls him James, because that's what his name is was revealed in the Origin series. Sorry if you don't like it, but that's what his name is. And so it's Mystique here. He's you didn't mind last night, it's your redhead fetish. And he's just fucking freaking out. He's running out. He runs into these two. There's Toad, and this is Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. Again, it's what the fuck is going on? He sees some stairs. Daylight, he runs out to this ledge, and he's on a goddamn helicarrier. Shield helicarrier, basically, but it has the M on it for House of M. There's Sentinels flying, and that's where it ends. So, again, they will explain this, I think, in the next issue. But everyone basically gets what they want in some form. Now, why some get, you know, like Storm is like royalty or a goddess, she's worshipped like she should be. Why she gets that and fucking Hank Pym is just some human who doesn't get to do what he wants. I don't understand it. But basically what Wolverine has always wanted is to know his past. So he remembers everything. He remembers what his real past is, right? Which in turn makes him remember who he actually is in the Marvel universe and not the House of M universe, basically. While everyone else, Mystique, Storm, they have new identities, Wolverine is the only one who keeps his mind, because that's what he really wanted. It's kind of a, what am I thinking? I don't know, it's something that just the powers of Scarlet Witch, like, messed up some way. So, the next issue gets to be kind of fun and more adventurous, because Wolverine, being the only one who knows what's actually going on, is the catalyst to stopping everything else, which I think is very clever from Brian Michael Bendis as the writer. So there's issue 2. Good stuff, in my opinion. Hope you're enjoying it. Hit the like button and share and subscribe and all that stuff. Hopefully you're enjoying the videos and enjoying this book. And as always, I will see you in the next video.